All right. Okay. I think we're live. Good morning. Hang on. I cannot hear you, Brian.
How about now?
Perfect.
Excellent. How's it
Okay.
going, man?
Yeah, it's going well. Just want to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to
Yeah.
wherever you're watching this from. Well, it's a good evening to you, Brian, and it's a good morning to me, and to the to the audience who will watch this later, wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. How are you doing, Brian?
Doing well. Doing well. It's obviously been a good week for crypto for a change. It's been a while since we could say that, but the last couple weeks or so, things have finally gotten better. It seemed like our previous call was a nice, good luck charm here.
Yeah. That was I think that was just 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? It was just 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
Right about at the
Yeah.
bottom. Funny enough.
Yeah. Okay, so well, I'll just do the intros. Welcome everyone. Today is Thursday, the 10th of February. I think for Brian, you're still on Wednesday, 9th of
Yep.
Feb.
I'm still stuck in the past year, Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah. For the audience, Brian's in California, so we're about 16 hours apart. So we're recording this, and then we will be playing it 8 p.m. Malaysian and Singapore time. So that's gonna come on tonight. Um, so yeah, so welcome. Hope everyone's doing well, staying safe. Again, we're very lucky to have Brian Quinlivan with us today from Sentiment. We're here once every month on the second Thursday of every month, right? So if you have your questions, put them in the comment section below. We will try to get to them while it's airing, or we will get back to you at the next session, and then I'll make sure Brian gets the questions because he's the expert here right now. Okay, so doing a mic check. I think mine's okay. I can hear Brian fine. Okay, so don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. If you're tuning in for the first time from YouTube, click on the bell icon, right? Choose all, and then you'll be notified each time we come on. If you're on Facebook, follow us. If you're on Twitch, follow us. Right? Don't forget to tag your friends if you know that they might be interested in the current topic that we're talking about, which is crypto and on-chain metrics and sentiment analysis, of which I have an expert on to help us interpret the information and read the tea leaves, right? So like I said earlier, feel free to throw in any questions that you may have in the comment section so that we can answer them either while it's airing or we'll get to it the next session. Okay, so just to make a quick announcement, we have a class, like a crypto class coming up in April 8th to the 10th. So if you are interested in attending class and figure out this new asset class, well, it's not new anymore. Bitcoin's been around for 13 years, but if you are, but it is new in a sense to many investors. But if you are interested to learn more about it, type in class in the comment section, and someone will get in touch with you. So without further ado, I'm gonna let Brian introduce himself. Brian's over to you, Brian.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andrew. So for those who watched the previous call I had with Andrew a couple of weeks ago, thanks so much for watching. I am the marketing director over at Santiment. I also do the weekly updates on our own YouTube channel. We can drop a link later on for those who want to check us out. But I do anything from marketing to content to video interviews and market updates like the one I'm doing for you guys here today to try and get everyone up to speed on exactly how the markets are looking in terms of on-chain health, social sentiment, and other things that are kind of driving the markets right now. There's always a lot going on. So my job, as well as many other staff members at Santiment, are to essentially make sure that any metrics that are kind of showing a bit of an outlier or a bullish or bearish divergence, we stay on top of that and update our audience to make sure they are prepared for any subsequent pumps or dumps that might be happening.
All right, thank you, Brian. And I'll just add very quickly before Brian gets started, which I accidentally clicked on earlier. Just a disclaimer: nothing that we talk about today should be taken as financial advice. We are not financial advisors. We're just here, two guys, two friends having a chat to see what's actually happening in the market. So if you do want financial advice, please go to your professional financial advisors, because that's not what Brian and I are. Thank you. All right,
Yeah.
Brian. So what's been happening in the market? Like, we've had a we've had a pretty nice bounce in the last week or so, yeah.
Yeah, it's been great to see. I'm going to share my screen and give you guys a quick update on what we've been seeing. I'm going to switch this to a 7-day return screener. So what this is showing is the last 7 days of returns by percentage for the top 100 market cap assets in crypto. You can see Bitcoin here at number one, jumped up about 19.5%. Ethereum also about 19.5%. And then you see plenty of other outliers. You've got your Shiba, which had a huge week. XRP also had a huge week. Leo, interestingly, has been really pumping hard. Gala has almost doubled over the past week. And then Cadena, or Cadena, however you prefer pronouncing it, is up 76% itself. So plenty of altcoins have actually exceeded what Bitcoin and Ethereum were doing. Around half of them or so exceeded them, and about half of them were not quite as successful in pumping as Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is typical, right? Because Bitcoin especially is known as the relative safe haven compared to all the other assets out there. And altcoins are kind of the more of the casino role. At least it's considered that when you aren't able to look at all the fundamental metrics and figure out which ones are actually the best altcoins to have your hard-earned money in. So luckily, we have an entire platform here that gives you insights as to which assets are showing major bullish divergences, which ones are having huge exchange inflows or outflows, or whale behavior that might be foreshadowing a big pump or a big dump. Those are the kind of things that we can look at. And I told Andrew before the call that we would put an emphasis on whale behavior right now to figure out exactly how those top holders are looking with their money, and whether they're pumping coins from under the radar right now, or whether they're kind of selling off because they think that this mini pump, relatively speaking, is kind of fool's gold and we might still have another leg down. So
Hey, Brian.
yeah.
If you don't mind, I'll interject here very quickly. So look, for if you're absolutely new to crypto, what we mean by whales are basically extremely wealthy and large players in the crypto, right? In the crypto scene, and also. You're like, well, what do you mean what the whales are doing? Well, that's the beauty about crypto. It's the transparency that the blockchain brings with it. It's your ability to literally see what is happening, who's moving what, where, and how much of it. That's the beauty of crypto. This is one of the most transparent asset classes in the world. You're not, you will see this in stocks, but there will be a little bit of a delay because some of the whales, i.e., substantial shareholders, will have to make official announcements, but then that gets shown the next day, well, the next couple of days, right? So there's a bit of lagging behavior here. It becomes a lagging indicator, but with crypto, it is so transparent. You can literally see the balances of who's got how many, whatever, where, and where that's moving to. So this is beautiful. All right, thank you, Brian.
Yeah. Thanks for explaining why those whales are so important. These are essentially the key stakeholders, or like the Warren Buffetts of the crypto world, who decide when they want to really put in a lot of liquidity or market cap into a certain asset, thus pumping it in most cases. Or if they suddenly take out their own liquidity, or they just don't want to have their share of coins for one asset for whatever reason, then coin prices tend to dump without their support. So we can take a look to begin with one of my favorite charts on sentiment, which is the measurement of the 100 to 10,000 coin Bitcoin holders here in gold. And then overlaying that, we have any um, any USDT tether, the largest stable coin in the world, any address that has between 10,000 all the way up to $10 million in USDT. This is essentially, it's a very wide range for those wondering why, but we chose a wide range like 10,000 to 10 million because it's basically the highest tiers where it's regular traders that hold a substantial amount of stable coins before it goes to 10 million plus, and those are essentially addresses that are owned by exchanges. So we try to go for that high, middle to high ground to see exactly how much tether these higher end traders are holding to indicate how much buying power they have. As you can see, when the pink line starts to retrace, that's when we inevitably see these drops. When they start to climb, the price of Bitcoin generally starts to climb with it because it means their buying power is getting greater. Um, some might interpret it as they've been selling, right, and that's why their tether amount is increasing. I found that it's kind of the opposite. It doesn't necessarily mean they're selling. It simply means that they are bringing in more stable coins, which could just be coming from their fiat, so that they have more buying power and are likely using it as the prices are moving up, and they're causing some of those prices to rise.
That's really cool. Hey, so Brian, just to so that the yeah, so we can see the price having risen a fair bit in the last week or maybe two, yeah, in
Yep,
that chart over there, and we can also see the amount of USDT as well as the number of holders of Bitcoin rising as well.
exactly. Yeah. So we're basically seeing that since the all-time high that occurred back on November 8th or 9th, wherever you are in the world, uh,
Mhm.
there was a pretty big drop in buying power, the largest I've seen in quite some time on the tether side. So between the 3rd and the 8th, right around the all-time high, these high-end addresses were actually shedding a lot of their stable coins, along with the fact that Bitcoin whales with 100 to 10,000 in their wallets, they were already starting to shed a lot of their supply beginning around October 24th, 25th, about 2 weeks prior to the all-time high. So it was inevitable that when we did finally hit whatever the top was, things were going to drop down in a hurry in most likelihood, because of the fact that a lot of those large key stakeholders for both stablecoins and for Bitcoin were beginning to exit and take less position, taking profit. And that profit has really continued to be taken all the way up until, what looks to be around last week for Bitcoin,
Mhm.
and till about the 4th for stablecoins. That's when they both bottomed out. Doesn't mean they're going to continue climbing. They could start to drop again. Um, but when we start to get our next data points, we're going to see, are the Bitcoin whales comfortable accumulating more now that the price has sort of fallen into a little more stability around this 43 to 45K level? Um, or are they going to think, things jumped back up too fast? Maybe we're going to take profit again and then buy back lower one more time. Same with the stable coins. It's still very low compared to where it was. I can even zoom out to, let's go last 3 years. This is around the period of time where Tether was stable enough as a stable coin, no pun intended, to be uh, kind of circulated on a regular basis and accepted as the main stable coin to be used. And we can see, they had huge accumulation beginning 3 years ago, and then they started dumping like crazy just a couple weeks prior to Black Thursday that occurred on March 20th. Look how much tether whales were dropping and Bitcoin whales were dropping. The Bitcoin whales kind of dropped a little beforehand, but a lot afterwards, and then immediately started accumulating once again here in gold. And then Tether kind of did the same thing, but even more so. They accumulated like crazy during this huge bull run that occurred at the end of 2020. And they started really, starting to decline at the end of 2020, even though we eventually made that all-time high in mid-April. At the time, it was the all-time high. Bitcoin was probably the reason why, because the Bitcoin whales continued to accumulate leading up to the all-time high. And like I said, they took profit. They typically take profit a week or two prior to the all-time highs. And that's exactly what happened both in April and in October, prior to the all-time highs that followed.
Nice. Hey, Brian, so curious, right? In terms of the accumulation of USDT, is it possible? So when a whale is accumulating USDT, does that mean he is potentially selling other coins?
Yeah, it's very possible. Like I said, there are two ways to look at it. You can assume that whenever they are selling, they are adding more USDT. But my theory is that they're not necessarily selling into stable coins. They're probably trying to get right into fiat so that they can cash out into their bank accounts.
Okay.
A lot of small to medium traders like to, stake their stable coins, hang on to it, have some use for it. But in the case of like millions of dollars, I don't
Mhm.
know if that's really necessary to them. I think that a lot of these really large whale holders are simply just cashing straight out. And when they are starting to see these high numbers in stablecoin holding,
Mhm.
that means they're planning on buying, or they're in the midst of buying, and they're bringing more fiat in from their bank accounts to turn it into stablecoins. And if we look at the chart and kind of eyeball it, especially since 2020, or
Mhm.
even back here, uh, usually when that line goes up and more of the percentage of total stablecoins are held by the whales, it generally is followed by rises. If we look at how they really accumulated here at the end of 2020, then started dumping, a bit of accumulation here. It's kind of relative.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't look at like this high needing to be as high as this high, but if
Mhm.
they've accumulated like over the last few months, even just a little, it
Mhm.
generally is a good sign. And I think overall, their hold on the supply is going to get smaller and smaller over time.
Mhm.
But we can still look at like big jumps like this or big drops like this as some good alpha.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Cool. All right. That's really cool. All right. So what else have you got for us today?
Yeah, so we went over some Bitcoin whales and USDT whales. Now we can also look at exactly how average trade returns are doing. Generally, we like this metric because of the fact that it actually gives us a gauge as to how well swing traders, that's why we're using 30 days, it's kind of a nice midterm trading period, how well those swing traders are doing in terms of their raw returns. Uh, many people will buy the dip hard. So if like prices go up fast, the average returns will go up fast with it. Sometimes they won't buy the dip so much, so that even when it goes up, like it does here for a small period, the MVRV doesn't change a whole lot. Um, and generally, if prices go down, it's happening after people are getting really euphoric about Bitcoin, and then the MVRV really plummets. So I'm going to draw a couple lines here. One here at negative 15%,
Mhm.
right about there, and then one at positive 15%, right about here. And these are essentially the danger zones and the euphoria zones, or buy zones, I should say, for Bitcoin. If you are watching the MVRV on a 30-day period and you see that the MVRV is above this plus 15% line, it's indicating that there's probably going to be some local top in the near future. On the other end of the spectrum, if you see something like this below the negative 15% line, like we clearly saw back here, this was right around the last time we talked, Andrew. This was
Yeah.
when prices were bottoming out because average traders over a 30-day span usually don't lose more than 15% in that period. If they do, it's generally an extreme buy opportunity. And that's exactly what it ended up being. That being said, we're now back in positive territory, meaning it's a more risky time to buy because so many people bought the dip down here. And once the prices rose, average trade returns just blew up. They went through the roof. We went from negative to positive in just over a week, which is pretty atypical. And we're sitting just below this super risky line, which is usually the time where it's starting to be advisable to take some profit. So considering that, it's starting to look a little more caution flaggy when it comes to adding to your investments now. There's a very good chance prices can continue to rise. Oftentimes it's even a given because there needs to be some final big swing up to get traders euphoric before whales and people with more money on the line can take profit right at the ideal time when everyone else is blindsided, and then the price will plummet, and then you'll see the MVRV go back down again.
Cool. Hey, so Brian, for the audience out there, now this is a 30-day moving window, right? So, so
Correct.
if yeah, so it's always, 30 days back from today, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and this is for all the traders who had made trades in the last moving 30 days to see whether they're in the money or not. And it's a very good indicator to help us um I suppose gauge how likely the those who did make trades in the last 30 days are likely to take profit or buy in, like, buy the dip.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. This is a really good gauge to see just how successful the average trader is for kind of a nice midterm period. So if you're trading on a week to week basis and making, taking a little profit every few days or buying the dip every few days, this 30-day period is a really nice uh, midterm time frame you can look at and say, okay, they're getting a bit overheated now, but they were extremely oversold back then, and everyone was panicking here. So this was the time you want to get in when everyone else thinks there's blood in the streets. Um,
Yeah.
and so this is a nice gauge for midterm trading, but to simplify it for our community, I made this model a few months back. And what it does is it'll actually take not just the 30-day MVRV, but the 1-day, 7-day, 90-day, 180, and 365. Basically, multiple periods all within a year. And we blend them all together to give us an average of how close any specific asset is to a danger zone, which would be up here, or an opportunity zone. I'm sorry, I have it backwards. The red is the danger zone, green is the opportunity zone. And I made it so that the higher the bar is, the better of an opportunity it is without much risk to get in. So you can look at something like Bitcoin, which is actually at negative 0.11. So on the short term, because things have been rising so fast, it's actually gotten a lot of new profits that it didn't have a week ago. But on the long term, there's still some struggles, and there's still some people who are underwater. So like the 30-day, for example, because there's so much profit, that's why it's bringing this number down. And this is closer to the danger zone now than it was to the opportunity zone, where almost all of these assets were like above the opportunity zone when Andrew and I last spoke. So it was a really interesting phenomenon that doesn't happen often, where it was just a universally good time to buy any of the assets that are in the top 100 or so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Hey, so looking at the chart, Brian, what again, none of this is financial advice, but what does look like, pretty good opportunity
Yeah.
zones? Yeah.
So because of the long-term lack of success for projects like AMP or Compound, for example, these
Mhm.
are showing that they are underbought right now
Mhm.
because they have struggled so much, and traders from all different intervals are underwater still. In the meantime, a few others would be 1 inch, it's looking pretty good right now. Curve, Decentraland, after it finally started to drop back over the past 24 hours. Loop Ring, same thing as Decentraland. It was on a good run, but dropped. OMG, and the Sandbox, just to give a few others. Now, keep in mind, this is only based on average trader returns. It's disregarding things like the amount of active addresses going on or circulation, or just other fundamental events that might be contributing to the weekly or daily fluctuations of the prices for those coins.
That's a good point, Brian. Yeah, I'm probably just gonna say that, look, as Brian mentioned, this is just one metric, right? And one should never just make an investment decision based on just one single metric. You kind of have to look at a few metrics and then kind of connect the dots to figure out, what's really happening in the market. But this is a very good indicator of telling you whether the average trader in the last this one's a different chart, but where the opportunities lie and where the danger zones are. But you should always combine that with a variety of metrics to kind of paint a more complete picture of what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah, well said. And that's why we have so many other metrics here to kind of paint a clearer picture as to what's going on. And I can breeze through a few of the key ones for Bitcoin with the remaining time we have. And by the way, how much time do we have remaining, Andrew?
Let me check quickly. We've got a good 34 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So plenty of time. I'll kind of go through how Bitcoin is looking for about 15 minutes, and then maybe the last 15, we can take some questions from anyone who has some follow-ups.
Sure.
So one thing I wanted to show was funding rates right now. Funding rates are very interesting because what they do is they essentially show what the shorting versus longing situation looks like for futures and leveraged trades going on many different exchanges. Generally, we use about 5 different exchanges: Bitfinex, Binance, FTX, Deribit, and DYDX. Those 5 we have funding rate data on. And they paint a picture of just how much shorting or longing is happening for any asset. We can see Bitcoin, for example, right here. These are all alphabetical. Bitcoin is right at neutral at the moment. So there is no skew toward leveraged longs or leveraged shorts, which is generally a good sign. That means that Bitcoin can still move up without too much resistance or greed standing in its way. That's when you'd see stuff like this from a few assets out there where there's a lot of leveraged longs going on right now. But that's not the case for Bitcoin. For Ethereum, they're actually slightly negative. So there's a little bit of shorting. People would think that Ethereum went up too fast, so they're betting on it going down a bit on average. This is really key because generally when we see most of the assets in green and very few in red, it still means that the crowd on average is a bit more skeptical than they are enthusiastic and euphoric. And when the crowd is skeptical, that's when prices tend to bloom. And those with a lot of money on the line, key stakeholders, they take full advantage of others' fear.
Yep.
So you can see it's actually updating a few of these bars now. But overall, I really love to take a look at this. I also have been working on this chart. And what this is showing is the average funding rate per hour over the past 24 hours. This is where we currently stand by looking at all of the 100 or so different assets. It's updating right now, actually.
Wow.
All of the 100 or so assets, it shows that we're just slightly negative. But look at how much people have been shorting for most of the past 24 hours and how the price has positively jumped up during that. And then what we want to avoid is, big jumps like this, where the crowd is positively funding their money. They're opening up like 100x leverage longs. Those are the kinds of things that get liquidated, and the key stakeholders will drive the price down to liquidate those greedy traders who are trying to kind of take advantage of their confidence, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I just wanted to add. Now, Brian just said that this chart was updating, and there must be so many data points, and all this is coming from the sentiment platform, because you guys crunch, millions and millions of data points, literally round the clock in order to bring these tools to us.
Exactly. Yeah. So the way I set it all up, I made formulas here. So I plugged in my Sandsheets plugin, which anyone can use. You can download it for free, but in order to actually have an API to plug into it, you just have to have a free trial of Sandbase Pro or be a Sandbase Pro member. And then you can go to your extensions and just add in your API key here. And as soon as you do, you can type in a formula. All of our formulas start with equals SAN, and you'll see all of these different things that you can enter. So I can say, I want to see the open, high, low, and close. I can see the amount of gas used, or just the trading volume, or prices, like I have it set up to do. And it's just going to automatically compile all of those dates and then the values that the price was during that hour. So right now I have it set up to display USD, but it can be other currencies, and give me, 1 hour per row, I should say. And then I just said the time frame can be like the last 3 days until now. So it's giving me, the last 3 or so days up until today, and showing me what the price was every hour. And then it's giving me like the Binance funding rate, which only updates every 8 hours, or FTX, which is every hour, Bitfinex is every hour. So it's giving me all these values and what the funding rates were on each of those for that designated time. And then all of these other ones are for different coins, Phantom, Hedera Hashgraph, Pancake Swap. They're all there just so I can make an auto updating chart like this. And you guys can use it just by downloading the chart, plugging in your API, and you're good to go, and you'll get real-time updates on it just like this.
Amazing. Amazing. I mean, the amount of work that you guys put it, behind the scenes, the amount of work that you guys put into behind the scenes to get that information, and then even setting up the charts first, right? That's yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's definitely one of the best platforms out there, and
Appreciate that, man.
I use that on a daily basis.
Yeah, we really do have a lot of stuff, and we care, guys. Like this is not just a profit venture for us, like many other crypto companies out there. We believe that traders deserve to have this kind of data at their fingertips, and not kind of be behind the curtains without knowing what's going on with all of these projects all the time. Every piece of data is available on the blockchain, and basically what we're doing is pulling all of this blockchain data off of these long URLs that nobody wants to sift through, and then automatically give us sorted into tables and charts and indicators that everyone can actually use to find alpha to help them with their trading decisions.
Yeah, definitely. It's a fantastic and amazing platform. That's why we're working with you guys.
I love it. No, I'm really glad we were able to connect, and it's always great talking to you and your audience. So yeah, funding rate's a really interesting one right now. People are shorting just slightly, but consider it mostly neutral, right? It's really kind of hovering slightly negative, and has just recently kind of gotten to this neutral territory. So nothing too special going on, meaning the price can go either way. But like we said, MVRV is looking a bit bearish right now. That's a slight notch against where the price can go next. But there's plenty of other things we can look through. We can see how circulation is looking. Generally, the more utility that an asset is seeing, the better prospects for the price to go up. Right now, the amount of circulation is going up in the long term, but it's kind of a little bit stagnant over the past month or so. You can see this 7-day trend line is kind of telling the story, and cutting through the noise. I can even make it like a 30-day trend line instead, which might be a little smoother. So there you go. You can see that the trend is going up over time, but it's fallen off a tiny bit since around Christmas, and it's kind of staying flat for now. To give some context, we can look at the last year, and you can see that it's had its share of fluctuations. Circulation tends to go down when prices are moving down, and then this would have been right around the bottom call if you wanted to get in close to the bottom here, because circulation was starting to rise. And obviously the new all-time high was hit as circulation was rising. So overall circulation looks fine given the context here. Nothing really amazing, but nothing concerning either.
Nice.
We can also look at daily active addresses, which tells a similar story. I'll put a 30-day smooth moving average once again. And it's different on addresses. We saw a massive amount of addresses interacting on the BTC network around a year ago. And then after the May plummet, you can see just how quickly addresses fell off because nobody knew what to do with this dump. It was the first time we'd really seen a dump in quite some time after, March 2020. Up until this point was nothing but green and celebration. So everyone's like, oh, I didn't know Bitcoin could actually go down, and people got stagnant and worried. And then finally, we started to see a bit of an uptick in daily active addresses. And just like circulation, while it was starting to rise right around its peak, we hit that all-time high. Right after the peak happened, look how it started to slide just a tiny bit. That being said, we're not near like July levels. That would be a big concern. Ideally, we like to see, the average Bitcoin day be around 1 million or more. Right now, it's sitting at around 925,000. So it's close, but not quite where we would feel comfortable with another bull run occurring based on the mediocre utility going on right now.
Okay, that's cool.
I mentioned social metrics. We can touch on a few of them really briefly. This metric is called weighted sentiment. So the way it works is we measure the amount of mentions on social media using Twitter, Discord, Telegram, Reddit, and then a few pro traders chats that we have access to. And we scrape all of the mentions anytime Bitcoin is brought up. And then we measure whether that mention was positive or negative based on some algorithms that we have that can predetermine whether someone is kind of, being sarcastic or genuinely expecting that the price is going to pump. And for the most part, we saw a whole bunch of euphoria, a lot of mentions of Bitcoin combined with a lot of like greed and assuming that prices were going to continue like this, right at the top. And then, we got to hear there was a mini bounce as the prices were starting to slide, and everyone said, okay, that was the bounce. Now it's time to go way back up. But because people were so euphoric, it was easier for the price to just continue dropping off a cliff until right around here in mid-December. Look how the weighted sentiment started to turn negative and fearful. And with that fear, prices declined a little bit more. It was very neutral around the time the bottom actually happened. And then boom, we finally had that big bounce. And now we're starting to see some mini signs of euphoria again. Not quite to the level of here, but it's a bit concerning that people believe that this rally is going to continue because prices move up best when nobody believes it's going to continue.
Yeah. That's cool. And for those out there, it's imagine what Brian just showed us, right? So this is sentiment analysis. We're gauging how fearful, or we're gauging feelings out there, right? In the market, we're trying to gauge, what's happening in, like, what are people talking about? Like, are they hopeful, or are they fearful, right? And so that is a massive plus. That's a massive, superpower. Call it that, right? That you're able to gauge how positive or how angry or how hopeless that the crowd's feeling at the moment. So that's a lot of work behind that simple chart.
Totally. Yeah, well
Yeah.
said, Andrew. It's we see plenty of evidence that proves to us that, negativity and fear is generally the time you want to get in. Going back to Black Thursday, going back to November of 2018, these were bottom indicators that we were able to see just by scraping all of the data that's going on social media all the time. And instead of just scrolling through a few people on your news feed and getting a gauge as to how everyone feels, we actually use bots and programs so that we actually can measure how everyone feels instead of just looking at a sample size of 10 avatars on Twitter.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. And that's amazing. And obviously when everyone is afraid, it is a very unnatural thing to go in and actually buying, because everyone around you is afraid, right? So this is where having a platform like this, where you are data driven in your investment decisions rather than being driven by emotion, because most of the crowd is driven by emotion. And when you cut through all that, that's when you get alpha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what data is all about. It's about avoiding um, making feelings-based decisions and looking exclusively at what history tells you will happen based on how on-chain and social metrics are looking at any given time. So we
Yeah.
have the ability to do that, and our community is constantly talking about all these metrics I'm showing, just to kind of get a nice picture of uh, how bearish or how bullish things look. And more often than not, we're right, and we're able to do all sorts of things. We even have, I wasn't planning to show this, but this is actually a pretty good segue. This is a platform that we're developing and is working right now. It's up, and we give real crypto away every 2 weeks for people who want to make mock trades. Now, these trades are basically signals where you choose between any asset, and you can say, I think Matic is going to rise. Not investment advice. I haven't looked at Matic for a long time, so this is just an example.
Yeah.
But you can say, I think Matic is going to rise. I'm going to enter this as a forecast. It's going to ask me to connect to my MetaMask. I won't actually do it right now. But when you plug in your MetaMask, assuming you have one, you can basically use something like $3 to $5 in gas is what it costs to make a prediction. And if you are one of the best predictors of the week, you make a few $100s worth of SAN. We're currently awarding the next batch of crypto in 3 days. That's when our bi-weekly contest ends, and we're giving away 27,450. I think Santiment's token is somewhere between 20 to 30 cents, but this is a pretty significant amount. If I'm doing the math right, that would be something like $7,000 to $8,000 in total rewards. Someone can check on that math, but it's a pretty good amount that we give away on a biweekly basis just for people coming in and making calls. And you can actually see they're all blockchain backed. Once they're called, nothing can be changed. We would never mess with any of these signals, have no reason to. And it shows, what were the best performing signals, who made them. We can see, here, during the open phase, it remains anonymous. And then when they close them, we can see which username was able to make that great call, like this person did for Solana. You can actually open it up and see they started their call here, they closed it here. So that one didn't go well. But this one, they started right at the bottom on January 30th. They closed it a couple days later for a big profit. You can see all this and basically open up any of them. And if I was logged in, actually, I could do it anyways. I can just click follow, and then it would allow me to see what this person is doing anytime they're making a prediction for the market. And they have no reason to make bad predictions because they're trying to win the thousands of dollars that is being given away every couple of weeks.
This is really cool. Very cool.
It's a really awesome platform, and
Yeah.
it's so cheap to use. You don't even have to pay anything. You can choose to not enter your forecast and just play along for free, and then there is no cost, and you can just sort of um, learn as you go and make some predictions without any cost or any reward that you can win. And that's a possibility too. We try to just make it open to everyone to use as they please, and our staff get involved, and we try to play along in the game. We prop up people who are at the top of the leaderboard and give them shout outs, and we have a great time with it. We really encourage anyone to check it out.
Nice. Very cool.
So that's a market prediction platform we've been working on. Let me see if there are a few other metrics I can plow through, and then we'll take some questions and call it a day.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so we're still
We've got
speaker.
we've got 15 minutes. Yeah, we've got 15 minutes. Any chance I can get you to look at a particular coin?
Of course.
Can we take a look at Ren? Because, well, obviously, I'm a huge fan of Ren, and it's also been beaten down quite a lot in the last, well, since November, I think.
Yeah.
And so it's looking pretty attractive right now.
So circulation is looking so-so, not really much change here, as we can see by the 30-day indicator. The price bottomed out on the 24th. I'm holding down shift here, and it shows that price has jumped 46.5% since the 24th. So pretty massive bounce right there.
Yep.
MVRV looks to be, so if this is the danger zone, 15%, it looks to be getting close to that, because it's risen so much in just the past couple of weeks. That would make sense. It was very, very low. For example, like this is the opportunity zone right here. So look how much further Ren dropped down before it finally bounced up. So it was inevitable to have quite a rebound because the MVRV got so low. You can see from previous examples, anytime it gets way below that line, big price bounces occur almost every time. So right now we're actually at a more risky point. Doesn't mean the price rally is going to stop, but it means on average there's a bit of caution that is usually advised when you're above this zero line, but it's not over this risky extra danger zone line.
Cool.
Other things for Ren, social volume, it's quite interesting. It looks like it's rarely being talked about right now. This is the social dominance line. This is the percentage of discussions related to Ren over the past year compared to other top 100 assets. And you can see that this is just, let me take off social volume. This is just an arbitrary line, but it looks like the social dominance is definitely falling in this direction. I can also make this like 7 days to give a better picture. And you can see that, it was being really talked about a lot a year ago after it had this huge, huge spike to, I believe, an all-time high, a little above $1.70. And as the prices kind of wavered and declined and jumped back up, the amount of discussion is almost non-existent right now. And that can be a good thing. It means it's under the radar.
Cool.
And then, of course, we can look at funding rate. We can see that on Binance, it's pretty much even. But on FTX, it's starting to get up there. It looks like people are longing it. So that would be a bit of a concern, too. It's at its most longed, I should say, that it's been since early January. So we're talking about just over a month since we last saw the funding rate this high. So people are starting to leverage long. And we can see it in context on here. It's in the neutral zone right now, so it's not in a scary zone, but Ren is one of the higher ones out of these top 100 or so assets that we have funding rate data on. So very slight concern there. Daily active address has been pretty low as well. Not a lot of circulating addresses on a daily basis. Weighted sentiment, this is a good thing. It shows that because people aren't talking about it much, there's actually, this would be a sign that there's more FUD than there is euphoria, like there was back here just as things were dropping. So because it's under the radar, this works to its advantage and is a slightly bullish signal. And then let's take a look at its whales. I think the price is, yeah, it's under $1 but above a cent. So the big high-end traders that aren't quite at exchange level would probably be between 100,000 to 10 million. We won't go the 10 million to infinity zone. And this looks pretty promising. It looks like whales have been accumulating pretty steadily since January 3rd. They owned about 42.7% of the supply then, and they peaked about a week ago all the way up at 47.5%. So they added almost 5% of the supply between the beginning of January and end of January. And there's been a little bit of fluctuation since, but nothing of major concern. You can see that it's pretty good alpha here, especially here when they accumulated starting in early May all the way up to late September. Look at how the price really started to zoom up. And I can actually, just so we can prove that it wasn't just all of assets doing that, I'll just look at Ren's price versus Bitcoin to paint a better picture. We'll make it green again, a little bit darker, and I'll make it a bar chart. And look at how Ren's price versus Bitcoin really rose during this accumulation period, pretty much right at the time when the accumulation started in mid to late July. So that's pretty good alpha. And then they took profit right as the price was dropping off a cliff again. Started taking some serious accumulation right here. And even right here, this mini one, look at how they accumulated here. And then the price spike happened about a week after that. That's pretty typical. There's a nice little delay where you can react to what these top key stakeholders are doing and then see a nice little boost after the fact when they pumped up the price.
Nice.
So right now, Ren key stakeholders are looking pretty solid. This is a very good sign for Ren.
Cool. I think it might be because they're introducing or they're releasing the host-to-host feature very soon, and I think they made an announcement in the last couple of days where if you have wrapped Bitcoin, for example, on Solana, you could just send it through to wrapped as a wrapped Bitcoin on the Phantom blockchain or layer 2, or you could send it to Polygon, or you could send it to Ethereum, from blockchain to blockchain. So looking forward to seeing that. That'll be interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah, we definitely like to check out Ren, and there are a few staff members who are really a big fan of this project. But any ERC20, that people would like to have a quick glimpse at, just as one final look through before we go, I'm happy to go through that project as well.
Sure. I think the other could we maybe take a look? So I've got a non-ERC20 coin that I'd like to look at very quickly before we go. That's been really under the radar, and it's probably quite hated, which is Litecoin. Because they've recently introduced or they've released the long-awaited MWeb, the Mimblewimble extension block. And I'm just wondering how the market is reacting to that news.
Yeah, Litecoin is quite interesting, and we do have full data on Litecoin too, because it's one of the OG coins, just like Bitcoin. Yeah. So it's on the Lightning network, and we've been able to extract a lot of data for it, despite it not living on the Ethereum blockchain. So nice. Litecoin, as far as its circulation is actually looking quite solid. You can see the trend line here over the past year. Even though prices have gone down a bit, we've seen circulation generally rise and show that it is getting more and more total tokens moving from address to address on a daily basis.
So that indicates usage or utility of the
Exactly.
token, right?
Yeah,
And
and it ignores like wash trading too. So this is only it's only counting each coin one time. So if it's the same coin moving over and over again to try to like buy low, sell high on an exchange, that
yeah.
doesn't count. It only looks at unique Litecoin being moved.
So anytime we see circulation or we see utility of a token, that's always a good sign, isn't it? That's a positive sign for the coin.
Exactly. Yeah,
Nice.
it's generally good, especially seeing a rise like this. Doesn't always mean the price is going to follow,
Yeah.
but historically, circulation dropping inevitably is bad for coin's price, and if it's rising, it's good.
Okay. Cool.
MVRV wise, it's pretty much in the same spot as REN. 15% would be the danger zone, so it's jumped from super negative to semi-positive right now, meaning it's a bit risky after this kind of pump. But
Mhm.
there are plenty of things that can send the MVRV back down and make the data more confident that a rise can happen. Social dominance, interestingly, my trend line is still up and it matches exactly what's going on with REN. Not a lot of discussion related to Litecoin right now, probably because it hasn't had many isolated pumps of its own as of late.
Mhm.
Funding rate wise, we see Binance is pretty much even, FTX is pretty much even, BitMEX is pretty much even. Yeah, they're all kind of just at neutral right now. Interesting, looking at DYDX especially. Actually,
Mhm.
we'll just look at FTX and DYDX really quick. Look at
Mhm.
how they got super high, especially DYDX, right at the top of Litecoin. And actually, some people maybe had some insider info and were expecting Litecoin to jump a couple weeks prior to this, but it really had a nice bump along with Bitcoin, of course, when Bitcoin made its all-time high here on November 9th. But this was at least a huge surge for Litecoin right around this time. So people were leverage longing like crazy, and then these people really got liquidated fast as it dropped back down.
Yeah.
Daily active addresses not looking as extremely solid as circulation, but certainly a good long-term trend to see that over time since last year,
Mhm.
Litecoin was getting around 170,000 daily active addresses. Now it's averaging at about 100 or 383,000 a day. So that's
Mhm.
looking pretty solid. Weighted sentiment. Interestingly, Litecoin is getting some attention right now. So it's showing that there's a bit of euphoria going on. People are picking up on the fact that Litecoin's been on a nice run here. So we may want to wait for this to settle down
Mhm.
before entering into a position or adding on. Of course, not investment advice, but that's generally what these charts would indicate. And then
Okay.
on Litecoin's whales, let's see, Litecoin is it's a little pricier. So we can look at something like 1,000. We'll look at 1,000 to 100,000 for this one because those are mostly millionaires,
Mhm.
and we'll see how they're looking right now. Get rid of that. So this is Litecoin's price versus Bitcoin.
Mhm.
So you can see when minor accumulations happen, and then
Mhm.
when they dump, look how they dumped right at the top here. And then there's been this huge accumulation period. Um, it might be a little deceptive due to the change in tech for Litecoin and some new addresses being created. But
Mhm.
overall, it looks like it's still on a pretty nice long-term trajectory since mid-June, where they're definitely owning more now than they were way back then. And price hasn't really reacted much to it yet. But if Litecoin gets going, these key stakeholders are going to be pretty rewarded because they're showing a lot of confidence in, uh, the second oldest cryptocurrency on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. I suspect the reason that the price hasn't gone up as much. In fact, Litecoin was in the top 10 for as long as I could remember between 2017 through to 2021. And well, in 2021, it kind of dropped to about top 20. But I suspect it's because a lot of newcomers have come into this space, and Litecoin is a pretty decentralized, and so they don't really have a marketing team that's kind of marketing it as much. So it's interesting to see it drop to top 20. But as the data shows, the whales have actually been accumulating.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind, we're looking at just Litecoin's price versus Bitcoin. It's going to look like it made a lot more sense when we just look at its raw USD price, which I can add here. And we can see that there's still, like, just as we talked about on the last graph, there was this huge jump here around the Bitcoin all-time high. And basically, just like every other altcoin, it's dropped off a cliff and started to recover just in the last 2 weeks. But the whales for Litecoin have hung tight, unlike some of the other assets.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, I think we're just right on time, Brian.
Beautiful. No, this has been great. I hope it's been informative and helpful for your community. And I do want to remind everyone, if you want to get on our platform, whether you want to be a paid member or not, you can head over to our app.sentiment.net/pricing page and just make a free subscription if you want, or go straight into pro status. And you can actually use the code EquitiesTracker to get 25% off of your first month. We have that set up for you guys after last call, and it's still very much open. We are more than happy to stand by and help any way we can to get you up and running. You can get a yearly subscription and get 2 months free, and you'll see the prices lower. So plenty of options out there. Give it a shot. Let us know what you think, and myself and many other staff are here to help.
Yeah, it's an amazing platform. I use it every day. It is right up there in terms of the approach that we at EquitiesTracker take to investment. Data driven investment decision making, right? And with the amount of data that this platform has, it's just amazing. And that's a bargain. So look, once again, thank you, Brian, for spending. I'm pretty sure you've had a long day. Thank you for spending the day with us, and probably dinner time for you.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. It is absolutely dinner time. I'm gonna feast tonight and hope that Bitcoin continues to rise. And I can't wait for the next call. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, have a great one. And so for you guys, tune in every second Thursday of the month. Wishing everyone a great day, a great evening, and enjoy your feast, Brian. Have a great night.
Much appreciated, Andrew. Enjoy your Thursday over there in the future, and we'll talk soon, okay?
All right, will do. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.